Warning, this Reviewmpressions may contain content not suitable for children. Viewer discretion is advised.
Uh-oh. Hello, my deep-fried, crispy, golden brown friends. My name is Arlo, and I'm here with a Reviewmpressions of The Witcher 3 on the Switch. Reviewmpressions being the stupid name that I give a thing where I played it more than I would for first impressions, but less than I would for a review. Kind of in between the two things. Many thanks to CD Projekt Red and Evolve PR for giving me a copy of the game to play with and have fun with and tell you what I think about the game. So, if in case you haven't played the game yet, the basic setup is you are a witcher named Geralt. You live in a world of magic and monsters and war, and it's a very unhappy world. It's interesting. Nobody's happy in this world. Everybody is just always fighting and getting eaten by monsters, and that just seems to be a constant thing for them. No one's really happy, ever. And I think that's kind of interesting. Most fantasy games will give you, I don't know, there's some sort of fancy aspect of it, or at least some parts of the world are living in fanciful fantasy lives. No, this is a bad place. It's a pretty bad place. And you are a witcher. Witchers are kind of an order of people that are specially trained and also kind of messed up physically in weird ways to kind of give them paranormal abilities, and the whole point of them is that they fight monsters, because there's monsters everywhere. You know, there are sorcerers in the world too, but like witchers specifically are made with some light magical powers, and they're very good at hunting, they got good eyesight and all that stuff. And people really don't like them. People hate you just because you're a witcher. Everyone considers you a freak, I guess because of the weird stuff you do to make yourself all fancy. They've got like light mind control powers, so nobody trusts them. They just think they're gross freaks, and they don't like how they charge for everything. Because that's the thing, is they hunt monsters, but they're bounty hunters. They're not going to help you unless you give them some money, and people don't like that either. So it's really interesting in the same way that it's interesting playing in a world where everybody is unhappy. It's also a very good change of pace. Playing a game where everyone hates you. You know, even if I'm doing good stuff, nobody's cheering at me when I walk by, like in Fable, or like treating me differently based on what race I am. In Skyrim, there's all those sorts of different relations. No, most of the time, people just don't like you. They kind of snicker at you and make funny noises and insult you as you walk by. Anytime you're going through a town, everybody's just like, get away, man. Get out of here, freak. So I don't know, it's just a change of pace. It's not something I've really experienced in a game world before, and I think that's kind of fun. So I won't go too deep into the story, don't want to spoil anything, but like the game starts out with you tracking down Yennefer, your old girlfriend, and eventually get to a point where you're also then tracking down a girl, one of your old wards, a girl that you were training to be a witcher a long time ago. Tracking her down. The whole land is currently being invaded by Nilfgaardians, which are from another country, and it seems pretty imminent that they're going to win. So the whole place is just completely war-torn, and that's one of the reasons everyone is so miserable all the time. If they're not getting eaten by monsters, they're also caught up in this war. And then you got the Wild Hunt, which is this big, spooky kind of thing with some spooky Sauron guys, and they run around on their spook horses and hit you with ice stuff. It's a whole thing. So they're around too, this weird supernatural thing. So yeah, that's basically it. War and monsters just kind of everywhere. That's the basic story. And you're looking for people that you like. The absolute most notable thing that I have to start with, it is the thing that has hit me the hardest, is the overall like story and characters. This is one of those really, really rare games where I go in and from the get-go, it's obvious that this is just perfectly written with just such care and detail, and it's this amazing, it's just the most amazing world building. The world itself is, I'm immediately engrossed by it, immediately interested in all the different stuff. It's obvious that it's a very complex world. I know this is based on a book series, but you can just tell so many different political things and regions of the world, and it's just this incredibly fleshed out world, and it captivated me right from the start. And even just the dialogue, I don't know what it is that makes good dialogue and good writing, especially in fantasy. It's too easy to get caught up in all the fantasy tropes and all the like old English pronunciations and all that stuff, but like this is one of those very rare times when it just hits home. It's got its own kind of style, obviously very big inspirations from other, Western fantasy stuff, but it's got its own kind of thing. It's confident in all the new stuff that it brings to the table, and just, it's just incredibly good. Just right from the get-go, you're like, yeah, this is a world that I want to invest in. This is a world I want to learn more about. And it's bolstered incredibly by superb voice acting and character animations. It's a cut above most games that I have ever played. It's one of those ones where they're like, we're not going to get a single bad actor in this. Every single person that comes here, even if they're just playing small characters, it's all going to feel real. It's all going to be delivered really well. And I don't know what they're doing over there at CD Projekt Red. I've played games with way bigger budgets from way bigger companies with facial animations that were not half as good as this. It's just, there's such detailed and nuance to them. Like there are characters who are communicating things to you, the player, and the character and everything with the slightest of facial expressions without saying anything, just like you would in, a movie, like a really tiny little look in the eye or something that they give. And that's just not something you see very often. You know what I mean? Like they, I could compare this game to Skyrim a lot. I probably will. And in that one, like, they've got, like, their character creator, and you've got, like, the sliders that you can use to make different faces, and that's also what they probably use to make NPCs. And that can kind of lead to some weird, kind of freakish-looking people, because that's not exactly how faces work. But, like, all the faces in this game, they look like people. They look like a random person that you would see somewhere, for real. And when they're animated, they're done so in such a natural, fluid way. It's just every single person looks like a real person you're talking to, even with the they're moving their hands around, the gestures and whatnot. Like, it's all just, it's incredibly fluid, and it adds so much to the feel of the game. Oh, and then you got dialogue options and like moral choices, choose to help this guy or help that guy. You can choose to be snarky or say something nice or whatever. So it's definitely scratching that sort of itch that I have too. I love games like that. It is a lot like Mass Effect, and all of these things are one of the things that I loved about Mass Effect. And I will say that this world and the story and the characters and everything, this is the most engrossed that I have been with a world and story and characters and the dialogue and the moral choices and stuff since Mass Effect. And that was years and years ago. So like that's really saying something, that this is scratching that itch that I have left over from Mass Effect for the first time in just so long. Gotta move on though. The gameplay, it is a big open world game. There's stuff all over the map and stuff to explore and monsters to fight and things to find. The one thing is, the big world, it is large and there's a lot of space to run around, but it's kind of split into parts. You go outside of your little box in one area, and then you find yourself in another area. So there's like a handful of different chunks kind of connected together. You kind of fast travel between them. I'm not a really big fan of that. I really do like to have a big world so I can just kind of go. I know this might be just their way of kind of slightly gating the player, because certain areas of different places have different leveled monsters. I don't think they really scale. They might scale up with you, but from what I can tell, harder places just have harder monsters. So I guess they didn't want it to be like you could just go anywhere and you're constantly going to be hitting monsters that kill you. So maybe this was their way of kind of gating you a little bit. But it is a little annoying because, a little too frequently I find myself at the edge of the map and it's like, you gotta turn back. And so I do, and then I keep accidentally hitting it again. So I don't know. And like some of these areas look very similar. So it's not like they're totally different themes that, they had to separate them. They could have linked them together in some way, or like started out separate, but then I don't really know. So that's like kind of, it's slightly annoying. You got a horse. You can ride around on your horse. You can call your horse from anywhere, which is great. Tons and tons of stuff to do. Like I said, it's the very standard open world RPG stuff, very much, again, like Skyrim. Quests, village people's always telling you, go kill this guy, go kill the monsters, go get me an item or whatever, just like pretty standard stuff. Lots and lots of it, as has also become standard. Just tons and tons of stuff to do. Never a shortage of stuff. The cool thing is, though, a lot of games can get a little bit tiresome if they do this, if the quests start to get a little too copy paste. This game though, it changes up this whole standard quest thing because you've got your like Witcher vision, as many games have been employing recently. You've got your special vision where you can see stuff in the environment differently when you use it. You can sense enemies and stuff, and this allows you to, obviously you're a hunter, you're a bounty hunter, so you can track animals with their blood and stuff like that. But then also, like, you'll see a ruined village and you're using your powers to, you're an investigator, basically. These are basically forensic powers. He's looking around, finding different dried blood, and it's really cool because he's like narrating to himself, kind of like a detective in a TV show or something, like, blood spatter here. It's this old, but this blood is from a different person because of this pattern on the door. She tried to get away, and like, it just feels really cool. It makes you feel really very empowered and neat, and then you're tracking stuff like, blood dribbles and footprints and stuff like that. But like, I feel like that kind of variety and cool factor helps to break up the general just run over here, find the giant rat, kill him, run over here, find the bandit, get the thing back from him. It just adds variety to it, makes it feel a little more interesting, gives it more just feel overall, really. The combat is tricky. I've heard that it is a little bit divisive with different people. Some people aren't so into it. I'm having fun with it, but I am having a hard time getting it. Even with all the time that I've spent in the game, I am still kind of trying to get the hang of it. Geralt's got he's very weighty. He's got a lot of momentum to him. You can like parry attacks and parry at the right time to do a counter attack, and there's a dodge and there's a roll, and then you've got all these different signs, which are really cool. Like, there are straight up sorcerers in the world, but Witchers they use like simple hand gestures to do like little spells that are quick, which I think is really cool. You've got like the fire one that just shoots out a little fire. You've got like a force one for pushing people. You've got that light mind control, which can kind of befuddle an enemy. You've got like a trap one that slows them down when they come in this little area. You've got a shield that just protects you from damage. And there's a lot to combat, and I can tell that there's a lot of nuance, and if you really, really master it, you'd probably be like a total pro. I myself am still trying to come to grips with it, and more often than not, I find myself panicking and just mashing that quick attack button. Like I'll run up, fire. Fire is almost the only one that I use. Like fire them, hit them, and then just leap back when they swing at me. I'm slowly getting it. I'm just saying it's tricky. That's just what I'll say. It's not the sort of thing you can just run in and you've got it right away, which is another difference between, this and Skyrim, where you're really just swinging your sword and holding up your shield or whatever. Still working with that, but it is fun. It's definitely fun. The leveling system is also different. You gain levels and you get skill points, and you put those skill points. You got this whole like kind of tree thing, all these different, this is you can raise your, the power that your quick attack does. You can make your potions more potent and all that. There's tons and tons of different stuff that you can do, perks that you can get. And the interesting thing though is that you don't just get them automatically. You've got to put them in an empty, like each individual ability and perk, you've got to put it in a slot, like an ability slot, and you only start out with a couple, and you've got to, like the higher level you are, the more slots you open up. So even on top of gaining these abilities and getting stronger, building your character in that way, you're also kind of on the fly building them and changing them around and adapting whatever. Like in this battle, I want to have my sword stronger and my whatever stronger, or you know what I mean? I can see the merit in this system. It's definitely interesting, and it forces a person to adapt constantly. It's a little more complex. I can't say that I like it as much. I do very frequently find myself wishing I up this stat, so now that stat is just better, and I don't have to, put it away later because I need to have this other ability in here. So I don't know, it's another thing that I'm still trying to get used to, and so far, it's probably my main gripe with the game. You had like the fragmented open world thing. This is probably up there. This is probably the number one thing that I'm kind of not so sure about it, but I don't know, I'm still getting into it. The footage that you're seeing that I'm showing you is from pretty early in the game, so I haven't really, it gets a lot more complex than that. And in terms of things being kind of overwhelming, this game's a little overwhelming. I know I'm something of a dullard when it comes to RPGs, so, most people probably be okay with it, but there's just a lot to it. You're gathering items from absolutely everywhere. There's a million different kinds. You're collecting ingredients for potions, which I love, by the way. It's another thing I loved in Skyrim. You're just like every single plant in the world, you're just going around collecting them. But then you're also collecting materials for forging, and there are other random doodads to equip in your weapon or your armor, and then the thing that you can equip to your, it's like an ability thing, but it's like I can't even explain it. There's just a lot to it. And it's all really standard stuff for the most part, but it's just a lot. It's just a lot of different things to do. It's a lot to take in, and it has been a very, a very slow process for me to steadily learn it all. I'm still learning it all, just at a very slow pace, but it is happening, and still trying to get the hang of it. But you know what? It speaks loads for the game that I'm completely overwhelmed by this stuff, yet I am still going. I'm still having a ton of fun, and it's tricky, but I feel compelled to keep learning it, and that's always how I know that I'm playing a game that I absolutely love, that I, despite that, because that's the sort of thing that'll completely turn me off to a game just entirely, is just too much stuff. I don't get it. I'm too dumb. But, no, I'm still really enjoying it, and despite the fact that I'm still only using, like, basic abilities, mostly just my fire and just, like, cheesing guys with that, and really not good at combat, and yet, here I am, still going, still working at it. Obviously, the most pressing question, and probably the reason why a lot of you even clicked on this video in the first place, is how does it run on the Switch? And it runs pretty darn well. I'm always kind of in this in-between thing where I want people to port stuff to the Switch, but I also, like, if there are too many sacrifices, I'm not going to be as into it, you know, like my Doom or Wolfenstein thing. I was kind of not really sure. I maybe would just rather play it on my PlayStation rather than a Switch, you know what I mean? But then here you do have, like, it's a big open world game, so that's like, the Switch is probably the only reason I would be able to play this game. I never got it on my PlayStation, even though I wanted it, because I didn't think I'd have the time to play it. So this does give me a chance. But there are sacrifices. You know, you can just see the visuals are pretty muddy. You know, they scaled everything down a lot. The adaptive resolution, it can get pretty darn low. It's usually pretty below 720p, so not even HD when you're out in the world. So it's kind of fuzzy, but then it's a lot better in, like, cutscenes when it's just focusing on one or two characters. The resolution goes up quite a bit, and it looks quite nice. You do get a lot of, like, pop-in and stuff, even in cutscenes. You know, there's a lot of visual glitches, and the other aspects of the game, a little bit buggy, too. But, like, overall, I feel like it's just on the edge of okay. You know, it's just north of not okay. it's just good enough. And one of the things I will say that's very much appreciated is it is a pretty darn steady 30 frames per second. You know, if you've got, like, the low resolution and the game is constantly dipping down into super low frame rates, that's when I start to be like, I don't know if this was worth it at all. Not this one, though. It's pretty darn steady at 30 FPS, and that is very much appreciated. So overall, like, I am pretty impressed by how it runs on the Switch, and, like, I do value visual clarity, even beyond graphical, you know, polish and all that stuff. I like a nice high resolution. I like a clear image. It's just something about, I feel like I can't see, even though I can. It's just a weird, like, neurotic thing, I guess. You know what I mean? So there's, like, a part of me that wishes I was playing on my PS4, but again, at the same time, I'm not going to boot up my PS4. I've got it on the Switch. I can play it on the go. The image, it doesn't scale down even lower than, you know, even any lower on handheld mode. So it's not like some games where it looks pretty on the TV and then you put it in handheld and it looks even worse. This is actually pretty darn doable. It looks better on the small screen because it's just less obvious how low the resolutions are and stuff. So yeah, like, I think it is worth it. I think I am happy that I'm playing it on my Switch. And if you don't have the option to play it on your PS4 or whatever, it's absolutely a good enough experience as long as you don't mind bugs and low resolution textures and all that stuff. It's absolutely worth playing on the Switch if you don't have any other option. Overall, I'm really enjoying it. I mean, I'm really, really enjoying it. It's just a very engrossing world and characters and everything, you know, just gathering stuff and making stuff and doing stuff and going on quests. It's the perfect kind of time killer game. And I love it. I love this game. Absolutely. So just know that. It's really good. I guess I don't even have anything else to say. I'm really enjoying it. I'm super duper happy that I decided to pick up and do a video on it so I could play it. So that's about it. You guys are awesome. I love you. If you're watching this within a day or two of it being released, I'm going to be at Portland Retro Gaming Expo in Portland, Oregon this weekend. But just the week, you check the date. You can look it up. Just look it up. That's where I'm going to be. If you're watching this soon enough, I'm going to be at PRGE. Go see me. You're awesome. See you there, I hope. Goodbye.